This is lesson 1024, problem 1060. In this problem, we are given our quadratic equations in perfect square form, and our goal is to see if we can figure out how many solutions each of these problems have, okay? And as we're solving these, we want to pay attention to how we might determine what a shortcut would be to figure out how many solutions an equation would have. So I'm going to do A, B, and D with you, and then you'll have to go back after this video and try C, E, and F on your own. So problem A is the quantity x plus 4 squared equal to 20. So it's in perfect square form, right? You've got that perfect square, that complete square on the left, and then you have your ones on the right-hand side. So we need to undo what's happening to get x alone. So to do that, I'm going to take the square root of both sides because the square root undoes the square. And remember, when I take a square root, I'm going to have plus or minus in front of that square root. So on the left here, the square root cancels out the square, so I'm left with x plus 4. And on the right, I have plus or minus the square root of 20. Okay, so now 20 is not a perfect square, so I'm not going to be able to take that square root and get a nice whole number, so I'm going to just leave it like that. And then I just want to keep solving for x, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So now I have that x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 20. All right, so that is my solution. And notice we have two solutions, right? We have negative 4 plus the square root of 20. That's one of our roots. And the other root, or the other x-intercept, is negative 4 minus the square root of 20. Now I have this written as the exact answer. If you wanted to graph this, you would plug those numbers into your calculator to get the approximate decimal answer so that you could graph it. And so what I noticed about the way the problem was originally given to me is that, so I ended up getting two answers for this problem, and I noticed that that perfect square was set equal to a positive number, right? It was the quantity x plus 4 squared equal to 20, okay? So when that number on the right-hand side was a positive number, we ended up getting two different answers. So we have two solutions. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this next one. So problem B, we'll see what happens here. So I have the quantity 7x minus 5 squared, and that's equal to negative 2. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take the square root to both sides. All right, now notice I would put a plus or minus here. And then like my square root is going to take out my square. So I have x minus 5, sorry, 7x minus 5 equal to plus or minus square root of negative 2. Okay, but I have a problem here because I cannot take the square root of a negative number. All right, so that means I'm not going to be able to solve it any further. So that means I'm not going to have any real solution. So I'm not going to have any roots or any x-intercepts. So that means that my parabola is either going to be sitting above my x-axis and it opens up, or it's below my x-axis and it's opening down. So this answer, we have no real solutions. And that is because we cannot take the square root of a negative number. All right. So this case, we have 0 solutions. And the reason I know that it would get 0 solutions if I didn't even solve it is that if this equation is equal to a negative number, automatically I'm going to know that I'm not going to have any solutions, because I know that my first step is going to be taking the square root of that negative number, and that I cannot do. So let's look at a third situation. So this is problem D. So we have the quantity 5 minus 10x squared, and it's equal to 0. Okay, so notice that in our first problem we did it was equal to a positive number, and we got two solutions, right? Meaning that our parabola would cross our x-axis at two different points. In B, it was equal to a negative number, and we got 0 solutions, so meaning our parabola was not going to cross our x-axis. And now we have our equation equal to 0. So hopefully you're thinking, oh, I wonder how many solutions this will have. So let's solve and see what happens. So if I take the square root of both sides, okay, I can add my plus or minus here because I'm putting a square root. Square root undoes my square, so I have 5 minus 10x equal to, well, there's not a plus or minus 0. There's just a 0. So I only have it equal to 0. And if I were to keep solving and want to get my x's alone, I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. So I get negative 10x equals negative 5. And I would divide both sides by negative 10. And I get that x equals 1/2. Okay, so here I'm seeing that I only have one solution. All right, and the way I would see that right away by looking at my equation in perfect square form is if the perfect square part of it, the complete square, is equal to 0, then automatically without solving, I'm going to know there's one solution. And that just means that my graph, my parabola, is going to touch my x-axis one time, only once. All right, so hopefully you can kind of see a shortcut for how you could figure out how many solutions an equation would have. And I want you to go ahead and try C, E, and F.